Call this regular committee of the whole meeting to order on Tuesday, September 10th, 2019 at 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under public participation, Mr. Carter.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. As I've said before,
Hold the mic. Hold the mic. There you go.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. As I've said before, I've been a registered medical cannabis patient since May 2018. I use mainly edibles and concentrates you take orally, and it's done great for, some chronic pain and arthritis. It's a good medicine. In the 70s, I was a recreational user like a lot of people were back then. And I can tell from my experience, it's not an addictive drug. It's not a gateway. It doesn't cause any serious harm. It can't kill you like alcohol and tobacco. And the recreational market is here to stay. I stay away from that. I want to be legal, law-abiding citizen the best I can. But the recreational is going to be legal. And if it's not, the street market's going to thrive. And I think it's a good opportunity if it comes to Lincoln for a tax base. I'm not just looking at the money, but I think it's going to be an easier way to keep track of what's going on, and it'll really deplete, that street market. It's quality product, and if we're allowed, out here, the growing facilities expanding like they are, there's no reason why we can't have that dispensary right here in town, because I can go there and spend my medical money, and I'd rather spend my money here in Lincoln than go to Springfield or anywhere else, because I just like to spend my money local to help the businesses. When I go to Springfield, I'm always go out to eat Crackles or somewhere, or do some other shopping, and there's going to be some of that benefit if this dispensary comes to Lincoln. It never has caused me any health issues, any mental health issues. This summer I decided to go off of it just to see for a couple months, and no problems. And I highly encourage you to vote and allow it to come if the state selects us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wanda Lee.
I was in the ER yesterday morning for my sciatica, so I'm having trouble sitting. I believe that I sent everyone here. If I didn't, I think the city administrator forwarded some copies on. I had a question after last week's meeting about some information that was printed in the minutes. And how many of you did get this? Did everybody get this? So they know what I'm talking about, so I don't have to go through the whole document. What I would like changed in those minutes is basically just the second sentence that is in the part of the presentation, public participation, in which I talked about the marijuana presentation. The second sentence, and I'll read just the short paragraph and point out what the second sentence is. It says, next, Mrs. Wanda Lee Rolfs came forward to talk about the marijuana dispensary presentation. She said, second sentence, she said, within the first 5 to 6 years of teaching, she said after working with a student, she knew the student was overdosing on medication. I would like that language changed to what I said. And what I said was on the video. I went back through the video and I typed up what was on the video. and that's what I would like the second sentence changed to. That sentence is, she said within the first 5 to 6 years of teaching, one night, I had a knock on my door. It was one of my students, and after asking her to come in, she could tell she was probably overdosing. So there are 3 things within that second sentence that did not come out in the minutes. I would never want anyone to think that I was working with a student at the high school thinking they were overdosing and not having reported it to the school. So at my home, I think it's extremely important to have in there so no one could misinterpret that. I also said probably overdosing. I did not say that she was overdosing. I really couldn't have necessarily known that because I had never dealt with anyone before that would do it, but it seemed to me from everything I'd had that she was probably overdosing. Also, I did not mention the word medication in my presentation. So there are 3 statements or 3 comments made there that are not accurate to what I actually said, and I would appreciate it if you could consider having that, the amendment made to those particular minutes. Do you have any questions? I hope I explained it, because to me it was going to be difficult sitting here and explaining it if you didn't see it in writing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly, you go ahead and come forward, and I'll let Ron kind of give some background first.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to invite up Kelly Crooks, who's a licensed clinical social worker with SIU and the Memorial Health System. 2 weeks ago, when the marijuana legalization discussion happened, I was asked by a fellow alderman to invite someone who is a mental health expert to come and give the potential side effects of marijuana usage on behavioral health. I reached out to Don Cavey, who's the administrator for the Logan County Health Department, who's here. He talked with Allison Rummer Gomez, who is on the Mental Health Advisory Committee for the Department of Public Health. And they found for us Kelly Crooks, again, who is a licensed social worker with SIU Memorial Health System. So Kelly coming up and talk to us, and I told her we'd also probably have some questions as well to follow.
Yes, so as Ron said, I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've worked in mental health and substance use since about 2012, both at Chestnut, at Gateway, and in various different agencies. The experience that I have with marijuana is actually that it has been helpful on a short-term use for a lot of my patients. Long-term use, there is no actual study saying that it can reduce any depression, anxiety, or even PTSD. Actually, the articles that I looked at recently have actually said that it can actually cause worsening symptoms in anxiety and depression, as well as PTSD, as long as it's long-term use. And so it can help short-term, like I said, but long-term, there's no actual study saying that will help. As far as for teenagers, it does show memory impairment issues, and then it can also cause, if it's smoked, it can actually cause smoke inhalation, causing damage to the lungs long-term, as well as long-term memory care issues. So,
Kevin?
So, in the studies that you're looking at on the long-term use, is in that study, and let's face it, there's a million things out there, so you're looking at something that I'm looking at differently and everything. In your study that you were looking at, does it mention long-term use as in daily use, or is it more, or does it even give a, let's face it, there's a big difference between recreational use
right.
and use. There's a difference between social drinking and an alcoholic. So,
Right.
Does it differentiate from that?
It does. It's just like using, like you said, alcohol or any other substance. If you use it more long-term, as in almost every day, and use it to a point that it becomes almost like a crutch. Oftentimes people use it whenever they're having any negative emotions, and so that actually kind of calms that down a little bit. But what we find is, instead of learning how to use proper coping skills, such as just different skills that we talk about, such as journaling or anything else that we talk about, a lot of people tend to reach more for the cannabis, and whenever the cannabis no longer works, they either increase their usage, which turns into cannabis use disorder, or if that no longer works, they will actually turn to other things. It's kind of the same way with tobacco. Sometimes tobacco kind of calms down stress, and so people feel like they need to actually increase their use of tobacco. And it's the same thing with cannabis. And sometimes, unfortunately, we have people that actually switch from cannabis to other different substances, including alcohol, opiates, or anything else. So pain medications, heroin, and such. So
Mr. Barrett?
I'm sorry, your name again is Rachel?
Kelly.
Kelly, close.
I always wanted to be called Rachel.
Sorry. Kelly. What's your credentials again, please?
I have a master's in social work as well as my license in clinical social work, and I'm also studying for my clinical psychology doctorate.
Okay. And so if we have you worked then with medical doctors that would have opinions as well on drug use?
Yes, I actually on Mondays and Wednesdays I actually work at something called the Medication Assisted Treatment down in Springfield. So we actually work with opioid use addiction issues, and we usually use Suboxone in that case. And so we do actually work with patients on all sorts of substances.
When you first started, you said some of your patients, and your patients are young adults?
Yes, I actually work for, all of my patients are either ages all the way up from 3 until 99 or however long.
Okay. And it says marijuana helps them on a short-term basis. What do you mean by that?
So
What's their issues that it's helping them?
a lot of times some people may not have any kind of coping skills or may not have any other addiction qualities, and so their genetics and everything don't lead them to actually have any addiction potential. And so for a short term, that kind of relieves any kind of minimum, like if they're in a panic. Sometimes with my patients, when they have anxiety, they can calm that anxiety down, but when they're going into a panic issue or a panic attack, sometimes that marijuana will calm that down.
And I didn't know, I was hoping if you had a medical background in your medical opinion, is drug use good?
And unfortunately, I don't have a medical background, so I don't know how to answer that question precisely, but I'm not here for good or bad. It's just kind of this is how it is.
Well, yeah, and that's why I was hoping we was going to get somebody that could speak on, the medical side of it as well. Because I'm banking that they would probably say medical or drug use is not good.
Right. And like I said, you would have to ask them, unfortunately.
So thank you.
Okay.
Other questions? Beth?
Yes, hi. Thank you. How do you spell your last name?
Crooks, Crooks.
That's all my question I had.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, was that with a Y or an I?
With a Y. Not
Heresy.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak under public participation? Allison?
I didn't plan on speaking because I knew we were in very good and capable hands with Ms. Kelly, but I am not a subject matter expert or a medical professional, but I do deal with vulnerable populations, a lot of vulnerable populations that are, yes, thank you, that are involved in issues that relate to substance abuse and or mental health abuse. So I also won the crown of being the Mental Health Advisory Council president with no experience as a subject matter expert or being a medical professional. But I do have organizational leadership skills, and that was really what it was to help form this council. But I do try to do my homework in serving in that capacity. So when Don approached me and we talked about approaching the council regarding the issue, I did my research, as I'm sure all of you did your research, and what I found was precisely what I think Mr. Bateman was getting at, is you can pull data supporting the pros or cons for legalized marijuana and recreational marijuana. It depends on what you look at and who you study. So I wanted to say tonight, not speaking on behalf of the advisory council and not speaking on behalf of Community Action, but speaking on behalf of Allison Rumler-Gomez, who is a resident here of Lincoln. I feel that this is an identity question. I feel like this is a question of values. What do we value here in Lincoln? What's important to us? So I also did a bout as the Logan County Fair Queen. Spent a lot of time giving speeches about Lincoln and what Logan County means to me. And I also took that duty very seriously. And what it means to me is, and one of the things that I gave a lot of speeches about as a young person here, and then a person who, as an adult, moved into Madison, Wisconsin, Memphis, Tennessee, lived in larger metropolitan areas. When I moved back, what I found was that I started thinking about what I saw when I closed my eyes. What do I see, what do I hear, what do I smell, what I want for my kids to see, hear, and smell when they're growing up. What I did not see, hear, and smell when I decided that I wanted to move back to Lincoln, Illinois, was a pot dispensary on every corner. And so the question that I want to pose to you is, what do you as a council, what do we as a community value? What is our vision for this community? Because I think that matters. And a lot of times we skip over that question because it's not polite to ask anymore. But what I value is kids playing pickup games at Ralph Gale Field. I like the smell of clipped lawn. I like sidewalks full of families bicycling up and down the streets. And I think you do too. So you can read the data, the pros and cons. It's chock full of references. I did fact checks for most of the information that was in the article that I brought tonight. But really for me, it boils down to values. And what I value is a community where my kids feel safe, where we have great family values, where I do get to see kids playing barefoot on Ralph Gale Field at the junior high, and I see kids bicycling down the street. I like to see the Railer red and green all over, and I appreciate when I was young listening to the junior high marching band on the corner of North Ottawa and Tremont Street. That's what I remembered, and that's why I moved back. And when you think about community culture and what that means and how that affects things like economic and community development, it matters. And I think it would be imprudent for us to skip that conversation. It matters.
Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you, Allie, for coming up. And I'll just throw out a compliment. As the mayorally appointed representative for the Logan County Health Department, I've attended a lot of these meetings, and I appreciate and compliment Don Cavey in the Logan County Health Department and this new Mental Health Advisory Committee. This is a conversation and a discussion which has been a topic of conversation for several months and will continue to be. And so whatever happens with this and this vote that we take and in the future of marijuana usage in Logan County, I can say I have some good faith and confidence that our Logan County Health Department is on top of what we need to do as a community to help respond to what we face. So again, thank you for all you do.
Anyone else would like to speak? Okay. Moving down, first we have the proclamation for the city's recognition of the 232nd year anniversary of the drafting of the U.S. Constitution, submitted by Lincoln, Illinois chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Consent agenda.
Okay. Place that on the consent agenda. Request to permit whitewashing on Wyatt Avenue from South Kickapoo Street to the Lincoln Community High School on Wednesday and Thursday evening, September 18th and 19th, 2019 for homecoming festivities. At the same time, they will whitewash on the streets immediately in front of the senior players' homes, and certificate of insurance is included. Mr. Welch?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to reiterate that I'm all in favor of this. I think it's nice to see that support displayed in the community during this time of year. I would just ask that they use the appropriate washable chalk instead of actual paint this year, so that it's no longer there after they're done. So if we could convey that to Ms. Morris, that would be wonderful. Otherwise, consent agenda.
We'll place that there. Hanson Professional Services, supplement of $15,438 for work to date on the Fish Street Road project design. Beth, did you have a comment?
Yes, this is their bill that they have been holding, and now we're in a different fiscal year, and this is accumulated to this point, so this is their bill for their supplement.
Questions, discussion? Listed on the regular agenda. Okay, yeah, we'll do that. Replacement of sewerage treatment plants, John Deere Gator for a 2018 John Deere Gator for $18,675 with trade-in. Anthony, do you have any comments on that?
No.
Nope.
Depends on what y'all's vote is.
Have any questions? Kevin?
Well, I guess my question is going to be, did the sewer treatment plant look at other similar vehicles, like the Kubota makes one just like it and such? I think the fire department owns a Case IH that's similar to a Gator.
Yes, the quotes that were submitted were Kubota, Polaris, John Deere. That was the three that we submitted for both occasions, the big John Deere and the smaller one.
Other questions or discussion? Mr. Welch?
For Mr. Conso, what line item will this come out of?
It would be in the sewer plant. Let me get the exact line for you. I believe, I wasn't in the meeting between the sewer department and the city administrator, but I'm assuming nothing has changed since we talked about this, Madam City Administrator, and if it has, let me know. I believe it is under the vehicles, capital expense vehicles.
Under the sewage treatment?
Under
Sewage
the
treatment line item?
collection. No, you're right. Plant, sewer plant.
Sewer plant. Can you give me, what's that number? Top of your head, do you know?
It is 5072007862.
Thank you, Mr. Conzo.
It would seem to me, though, I don't know, like I said, I wasn't in on all of the discussion with that, but this replacement exceeds the amount in that line, so I don't know. I know there's been several transitions there with your company, and I don't know how this all came about, but there, we may need to do a budget amendment, which would involve taking it from one of the other lines in order to do that. And there are other lines that have building and grounds and so forth that have a lot more money in it, but require an amendment to do that. The total amount of the sewer plant is $2,101,830. I know there are a couple of other things where amendments are going to have to be.
Kathy Schmidt?
I just wondered what the condition of the present Gator is. Is it not running now?
The present 6x6 is over 10 years old. The guys literally change the set of spark plugs every other day to maintain it. Two of the wheels, axle is no longer usable, so in essence it's actually a four-wheeler. The cab leaks something drastically on top of our lab equipment and stuff that these guys are required to use in the field, actually out in the weather and the clarifiers and stuff. So believe me, any of you are welcome to come out of the wastewater plant and observe the condition of this thing. I applaud the operators for keeping it going as long as we have. But I will say again, the John Deere, one of the many reasons we picked this John Deere over the others. In this case, the price won out, but also the Gator we have lasted as long as it did under these conditions, so that speaks pretty highly.
Thank you.
Further discussions or questions? Place this on the regular agenda.
Yes.
Great. Bid opening for CMT Union Street Lift Station project.
Good evening, everyone. I am here to report we opened bids last Wednesday at 3 o'clock. We received 4 bids. Bids came in, I might say, very well, better than I anticipated. Stark Excavating was the low bidder at $3,429,000, $429,900, and that actually was over $500,000 less than the next lowest bidder. I will say that all the bids were fairly lumped together. The highest bid was 4.5, so there was $1 million variance in between, but the middle 2 bids were within $100,000 of each other. So all in all, very satisfied with the bids. I have submitted to you guys my letter of recommending that you do the notice of intent to award to Stark Excavating. I called 4 different communities that have had work with Stark Excavating, as well as another engineer, and I did not receive any negative comments. Some are typical things, but those are things that it's our job to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing per the contract. So all in all, very satisfied, and if you guys place this to consent, place this to the next level, vote on it, we get this thing signed, then I will get everything submitted to IEPA and get the next level ready for the SRF loan to go.
Kevin?
So I was at the bid opening. All 4 companies were present, and I think there was another subcontractor that was observing.
A general contractor. Had
General
come in.
contractor?
Yes.
And so I hadn't spoke of the bid amount to absolutely anybody because I informed Christie to let's not share the information until she did her diligence and verified their references and stuff like that, because I didn't want to have to an email go out on the bids and then turn around and the low bidder doesn't qualify for the work that we did. So that's why once I was at the meeting, I didn't share that information with anybody. I thank you very much for checking those references very quickly and getting back to us in email form. And I feel totally confident in her research that if she feels Stark is the contractor, that's who we should go with.
And good prices. Double bonus.
Questions or discussion? Mr. Conzo?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a question I have, this is all part of this long-term control plan.
Yes.
I know in the budget, we have in there $2,450,000 specifically for lift stations and $3,500,000 for the long-term control plan. I'm assuming some of this would come out of, the intent would be for some of that to come out of each of those lines.
Well, right now, the way that I have the loan application set up is basically you would submit the contractor's application and then you get reimbursement and then pay the contractor from that. The way the numbers are set up, they will execute the loan for the total amount, including our oversight engineering costs. And then really it's up to the city council to decide if they want to be reimbursed for that entire amount, pay part of it out of your pocket. The other thing is my understanding of the program, I haven't gone through it yet with the principal forgiveness, but once we submit and we find out if we get principal forgiveness, then we'll also know how that impacts the ultimate loan amount, and that might make a change of heart on how you want to go about that. Basically, all we have left is to wrap up the design of the CSO project, which is number 10, and then take that into construction, and then again, then that loan would be executed. So I'm not for sure, maybe sometime we could sit down and discuss those numbers exactly. But the way I understood it was that from the time that it begins construction and we go for the loan, as it looks right now, we should be solid that the loan amount and what we've requested is adequate to cover all those things.
Thank you.
Further questions, discussion? Place that on the regular agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bid opening for general cleaning services of city buildings. Mrs. Bateman?
We put out for bid for the cleaning, which would just been the police station and the depot, the waiting station, the Amtrak part of it, which is daily, and then City Hall, which is downstairs. It has nothing to do with the fire department's quarters. It's just downstairs. We kind of, with City Hall, we kind of changed things up, that they would just clean the public area type. They wouldn't be behind the locked doors. We decided that we would take care of that ourselves, save a little money, and just be a little safe that no one else is behind them doors. So they were to submit them 3 different bids, but overall, it'd be a total of, the total together would be the lowest one. The first one that we received was Royce Scales, It was the police station, and it was $780 a month. The city hall would be $550 a month. And the depot waiting station would be $1,040 a month, which that's a daily clean. Which is $2,370. And this is just like everything else. Once we go back and break it down, make sure they've bid what we asked them how to bid. And the next one is Resilient. They put theirs in 3 separate envelopes, so that's why